Hi, and welcome to Wolfton ASMR. This evening I want to read a short passage from the biography of JRR Tolkien. I'm only going to talk for maybe 10 minutes, so it will be a fairly short video today, but I do hope you enjoy it and that you find it relaxing. This biography is written by Humphrey Carpenter, and according to the Times, is one of the most interesting and readable biographies of a literary figure. A note about Humphrey Carpenter first. He was born in Oxford in 1946. After taking his degree at Keble College, Oxford, he worked for some years for the BBC, for whom he has continued to broadcast since becoming a full-time writer in 1975. His other biographies include The Inklings, C.S. Lewis and His Circle, which won a Somerset Maugham Award, W.H. Auden, runner-up for a Whitbread Award, and Jesus Past Masters series. He has also written several children's books and a study of children's literature, Secret Gardens, and has compiled with his wife Mary Pritchard the Oxford Companion to Children's Literature. In 1984, the year of my birth, he received an E.M. Forster Award from the American Academy and Institute of Art and Letters. JRR Tolkien, a biography. Part 1. A quick author's note. This book is based upon the letters, diaries and other papers of the late Professor JRR Tolkien, and upon the reminiscences of his family and friends. Tolkien himself did not entirely approve of biography, or rather, he disliked its use as a form of literary criticism. One of my strongest opinions, he once wrote, is that investigation of an author's biography is an entirely vain and false approach to his works. Yet he was undoubtedly aware that the remarkable popularity of his fiction made it highly likely that a biography would be written after his death, and indeed he appears to have made some sort of preparation for this himself. For in the last years of his life he annotated a number of old letters and papers with explanatory notes or other comments. He also wrote a few pages of recollections of his childhood. It may thus be hoped that this book would not be entirely foreign to his wishes. In writing it, I have tried to tell the story of Tolkien's life without attempting any critical judgments of his works of fiction. This is partly in deference to his own views, but in any case it seems to me that the first published biography of a writer is not necessarily the best place to make literary judgments, which will after all reflect the character of the critic just as much as that of his subject. I have, however, tried to delineate some of the literary and other influences that came to bear on Tolkien's imagination, in the hope that this may shed some light on his books. A visit. It is mid-morning on a spring day in 1967. I have driven from the centre of Oxford over Magdalen Bridge, along the London Road and up a hill into the respectable but dull suburb of Headington. Near a large private school for girls, I turn left into Sandfield Road, a residential street of 2-storey brick houses, each with its tidy front garden. Number 67 is a long way down the road. The house is painted white and is partially screened by a tall fence, a hedge, and overhanging trees. I park the car, open the arched gate, go up the short path between rose bushes, and ring the front doorbell. For a long time there is silence, except for the rumble of distant traffic in the main road. I am beginning to think of ringing again, or of turning away, when the door is opened by Professor Tolkien. He is slightly smaller than I expected. Tallness is a quality of which he makes much in his books, so it is a little surprising to see that he himself is slightly less than the average height. Not much, but just enough to be noticeable. I introduce myself, and since I made this appointment in advance, I'm expected. The quizzical and somewhat defensive look that first met me is replaced by a smile. A hand is offered, and my own is firmly grasped. Behind him, I can see the entrance hall, which is small and tidy, and contains nothing that one would not expect in the house of a middle-class elderly couple. W. H. Auden, in an injudicious remark quoted in the newspapers, has called the house hideous, but that is nonsense. It is simply ordinary and suburban. Mrs. Tolkien appears for a moment to greet me. She is smaller than her husband, a neat old lady with white hair bound close to her head and dark eyebrows. Pleasantries are exchanged, and then the professor comes out of the front door and takes me into his office at the side of the house. This proves to be the garage, long abandoned by any car. He explains that he has not had a car since the beginning of the Second World War, and since his retirement, made habitable and given over to the housing of books and papers formerly kept in his college room. The shelves are crammed with dictionaries, works on etymology and philology, and editions of texts in many languages, predominant among which are Old and Middle English and Old Norse. But there is also a section devoted to the translations of The Lord of the Rings into Polish, Dutch, Danish, Swedish, and Japanese. And the map of his invented Middle-earth is pinned to the window ledge. On the floor is a very old portmanteau full of letters, and on the desk are ink bottles, nibs, and pen holders, and 2 typewriters. The room smells of books and tobacco smoke. It is not very comfortable, and the professor apologizes for receiving me here, but he explains that there is no space in the study bedroom in the house where he actually does his writing. He says that in any case this is all temporary. Soon he will, he hopes, manage to finish at least the major part of the work promised to his publishers, and then he and Mrs. Tolkien will be able to move to more comfortable quarters and congenial surroundings, away from visitors and intrusions. He looks slightly embarrassed after the last remark. I climb past the electric fire and, at his bidding, seat myself in a wheel-back chair, and he takes his pipe from the pocket of his tweed jacket and launches into an explanation of his inability to spare me more than a few minutes. A shiny blue alarm clock ticks noisily across the room as if to emphasize the point. He says that he has to clear up an apparent contradiction in a passage of The Lord of the Rings that has been pointed out in a letter from a reader. The matter requires his urgent consideration, as a revised edition of the book is about to go to press. He explains it all in great detail, talking about his book, not as a work of fiction, but as a chronicle of actual events. He seems to see himself not as an author who has made a slight error that must now be corrected or explained away, but as a historian who must cast light on an obscurity in a historical document. Disconcertingly, he seems to think that I know the book as well as he does. I have read it many times, but he is talking about details that mean little or nothing to me. I begin to fear that he will throw some penetrating question at me that will reveal my ignorance, and indeed, now he does ask me a question, but fortunately it is rhetorical, and clearly requires no more than the answer yes. I'm going to leave that there for now. I hope you are feeling relaxed and that you have a wonderful evening, if it is the evening. If you are watching this before bed, sleep well. And if you're watching this at any other time of the day, I do hope you have a good one. Thank you for listening.